Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov gang. Our gang members this evening for our third segment of this show. Susanne Reyto, author of Pursuit of Freedom. Mark Tapson, Shillman Journalism Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. And Eric Allen Bell, writer and filmmaker. And we made a mistake in the last introduction of last show. I said that Mark was on the cover of GQ magazine. I mixed that up. It was you, Eric, right? Or am I correct, or I've made another mistake now?
There won't be for years before that.
He was on the Sports Illustrated bikini issue. And
oh, man.
That's where he's getting us confused.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Nobody knew about that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third segment. To kill a Christian pastor. Iran is threatening or saying that it's going to kill the Christian pastor in Iran that converted from the Islamic faith to Christianity. You know, what I'm really interested in is, you know, a lot of Muslims you talk to say, oh, that's not Islam. That's not Islam. Where are the imams? Where are the muftis? Where are the clerics around the world denouncing this? If it is not Islam, and this Christian pastor is going to be killed, how come we don't see the riots that the Afghans are engaged in right now over the Quran burning? Should Muslims be rioting in the streets very upset about how Islam is being defamed by what Iran is doing? How do you read all this, and also the double standard in the West of what the media is interested in and who we condemn and who we don't condemn? Because I think Iran's getting off scot-free here almost in the media.
Apostasy,
let's start with you.
Apostasy
Susanne.
is a problem, but it's punishable by death. And this is what's happening to this poor pastor. And the fact that he has a lot of followers, probably the followers are equally threatened. And unfortunately, most people who believe in Islam, you're a devout Muslim, you believe in your religion, and you know it from your imam. And if the imam is a militant Wahhabi, is kind of an Islamist, then you only hear the bad side of it.
But Susanne, where, if the left in the West represents human rights and women's rights and democracy and everything like they say they do, where are the leftists chanting in the streets on behalf of this Christian pastor that's about to get executed? Where is the left? Where are the liberals? What's going on? Why isn't this on CNN? Why isn't it on MSNBC? This is a disgrace.
I feel the same way about women. Women getting stoned and getting battered and all kinds of issues, and they don't seem to stand up either.
Why are liberals and leftists, or I'll just call all of them leftists, why are they silent on these outrages in the West?
Because maybe they are in silent support.
I have the answer.
Okay.
Mark Tapson has the answer after a life of experience.
It's because multiculturalism for them trumps everything else.
Indeed.
Multiculturalism trumps feminism. It trumps religious freedom, at least where Christians are concerned. And that's one reason that the media don't cover this as much as we would like to see, is frankly the media don't really care what happens to Christians. So that's a big problem also. But really, multiculturalism is the issue. That multiculturalist indoctrination over decades really takes hold, and you reach the point where you're afraid to criticize another culture. Oh, what right do we have to criticize the way they live? You know, because we have our own issues, and who are we to judge?
Mark, it's incredible. There was a grad student, and he represented 1 million of them that taunted me and gave me a hard time in academia. But always during Easter, this one particular leftist always used to say, "Oh, let's have a crucifixion party." And he was so proud of himself, and he knew I was a Christian, and he was so proud to make fun of it. But today, if one were to make fun of Muhammad or Islam, he would be the first one to say that we need to be sensitive to Islam and to other faiths.
Yeah.
Eric, what's this double standard? It's just a nauseating double standard. We have Christians being killed. There's a genocide in the Middle East. Nobody's saying a word in the West. But if something happens to one member of the Islamic faith, the whole media is up in arms.
I agree with everything Mark said, and I would add to that there is a perception in the liberal world, and I don't mean the sort of brain-dead liberals in the middle, I mean the leftists, that whatever America is doing is worse than what anybody else is doing. So, there's some infractions in Iran, but they're really, it's being exaggerated by the Republicans, and so that America is the bad guy. So anything anybody else does is not as bad.
Yeah.
So they have to side with the victim. And then I would add to that, CARE, I think their mandate is to come here and convince us all that Islam is the victim, and it's working.
Yeah, but look, during the Reagan administration, the Soviets were worried about a lot of things. They were worried about how they treated their dissidents. They were worried about a whole bunch of other things. Under Obama, we've got a president running around, I'm sorry, Muslim Brotherhood, where are you? Let me shake your hand. Let me give you money for a few hostages. There's no fear. I don't even think that Iran, if Reagan was in power, I think that Ahmadinejad would be afraid of killing this Christian pastor. Susanne, I don't think the Iranians fear America. I mean, Obama has made the United States impotent and a laughingstock.
I think, unfortunately, he wanted to, when he came into presidency, he wanted to be loved by the world.
Yes.
And he wanted the love instead of the fear. And when you want to be loved, you're weak. And I'm not sure he wants to understand that with the Islamic issues, weakness is interpreted, love and giving in is interpreted as weakness. And this is one of our biggest problems. We need to stand up. They only understand from strength.
Right. Obama wanted to be loved. When it comes to you on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like Obama? 10 being the most.
I'd rather not say.
Is it in the negative numbers?
Certainly.
Mark. Following up on just all these double standards and how there's just no respect. I don't think Iran even fears the United States with Obama in charge. And in terms of killing the Christian pastor. I mean, even how Khodorkovsky is treated in the Russian jail under Putin. I think the Russians are just spitting at America today. They really don't care.
Well, I don't think we have to go to the pastor. How about the Coptic Christians in Egypt?
Right, no, absolutely.
They're getting slaughtered.
Yeah.
Their churches are being torched, and they are getting slaughtered. So it doesn't have to be an apostate like the pastor, but the regular Christians in a Muslim world cannot seem to have a life.
Mark, very quickly, just a concluding statement. It's multiculturalism of the left that just simply trumps any decency, right?
Yeah, I think that's really the problem. That's the mindset that really controls how the left views these things. And also, what you added was perfect, that the left figures that anything that America is doing has to be worse than what anyone else is doing around the world. So that's the mindset that's the problem.
I think there's an important distinction to add while we're on the subject. The impression I get is that your average person on the street in Iran is a lot more reasonable than your average Egyptian. So there's a lot of people, 55% of the population, I think, in Iran is under 25. So there's a lot of people there that you don't hear about Iranian suicide bombers. That if that regime could collapse from within before they have nukes, then we might actually have a reasonable country that we can deal with there. Whereas Egypt, we're dealing with unreasonable people that they just cannot be reasoned with. So you can't have one policy that's the same in both cases.
But Eric, when Iranians went into the street several years ago, and Iran despotically and ruthlessly suppress that rebellion. We had an American president that did not say, I am on your side. We support
look
freedom.
what he did with Libya. He bombed the hell out of them, and then immediately the Transitional Council imposes Sharia.
Mark, was it, and Suzanne, was it a betrayal of Obama how he dealt with the Iranian people during their uprising?
Absolutely. And the Iranians all feel during that Green Revolution, they got no support. But I really believe that we as citizens need to stand up and retain and bring back the American exceptionalism.
Right.
We are not, this may be a global world, but this is exceptional America. And without America, the world would not be the same.
And Suzanne, in terms of betrayal, I think in 1956 when the Hungarian uprising rose and fell, I think there was a certain betrayal on the part of the West during that time as well when the Soviets invaded and crushed that rebellion, right?
I think there were lots of issues. The Suez crisis happened at the same time, and I think it was difficult to be in two places. Yeah. So,
maybe they didn't want to risk a nuclear war.
We may not always be perfect, and as I said earlier, maybe we needed to tweak this country, but we didn't want to transform it fundamentally, because this is the greatest country on earth. And let's face it, if without the American aid to many, many countries, where would those countries be? Yeah. Who supports those countries that are in need? America does.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're almost out of time. A very sad, tragic day today. The passing of a modern-day hero, I would say, a leader of the conservative movement, brave warrior, and a friend of the David Horowitz Freedom Center, Andrew Breitbart. I want to leave with each of us perhaps saying a couple words about this person. We have a tremendous amount of love for him, and a very tragic day. Mark, you knew Andrew quite well. Do you want to say a couple words?
Yeah, I'd like to. I've been shocked and really disturbed all day long by it, because his death was obviously so sudden and unexpected and shocking. He was a good friend of mine, and I'll tell you this. Last night I was on the phone with a good friend of mine. This was shortly after midnight, and we were talking about Breitbart, and we said, he's really a unique warrior for our side, and he's indispensable. He's one of a kind, and we really need him. And we didn't know at the time that we were talking, literally, probably at the time that we were speaking, he was passing away. So we have lost a really unique warrior for our side, and so I think now it's up to the right. I think our job is to all of us stand up and become Andrew.
I will say, when leftists die, you never see any kind of shameless behavior on the right, but there were even some blogs today that were just atrocious in their disrespect.
Look, this is the nature of the people that we are up against.
Not even a moment of respect for a person that has passed.
And they're exposing their hatred.
Yeah.
They're exposing themselves, and that's a good thing.
And in many respects, it showed how he was how effective he was and how much he stood for truth.
He was very hated because he understood them, and he knew how to take the fight to them.
Susanne, a word on Andrew Breitbart?
He was an amazing person who was not afraid to speak out and speak up and represent our side. There aren't too many people who are willing to take chances and take risks and speak his mind and speak his conviction. And he was a true hero for all of us.
Eric?
He had a lot of courage, creativity, and he had a lot of enemies. It's interesting that hours after he died, somebody from Slate tweeted, "The world would be better off without him." And that's just one of many examples coming from left-wing blogs and shows. Yeah. It's just inhumane the way they're dancing on his grave.
And I think that the left in general historically is dancing on graves in terms of its agenda, but wow, did it ever show its ugly face during the moment when I think a moment of silence could have been coming from all civilized people, right? Yeah. Andrew Breitbart, a friend of the David Horowitz Freedom Center, a great hero, and will be terribly missed. A tragic day. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the Glazov Gang. I hope you'll come back.
Thanks for
having us. Thank you for being here.
Join us again next week on the Glazov Gang. Good night.